I was just chilling in my apartment when my phone lit up with my mom's contact pic. My mom never calls after 9 p.m. Like, it's basically her religion to be in bed by 10, so I immediately got that weird stomach drop feeling. I answered with my heart literally pounding, assuming someone was in the hospital or worse. She just said, "Hi, sweetie, are you alone right now?" in this super weird tone I'd never heard before. I said, "Yeah, my roommate was out of town visiting her boyfriend." She took this deep breath and was like, "Good, I need to tell you something important, and I need you to just listen until I'm finished." Y'all, I swear my life flashed before my eyes. Was she sick? Was my dad sick? Were they getting divorced after 35 years? My parents have always been like the stable couple everyone else compares themselves to, so this would be wild. She told me to sit down, and I remember grabbing my fuzzy blanket and curling up on the couch, feeling like I was 8 years old again, waiting to be punished for something. Then she started talking about Elizabeth. For context, Elizabeth is my mom's sister who I've literally never met. Like, ever. She lives across the country, and they had some huge falling out before I was born. Growing up, Elizabeth was basically just this name that would come up occasionally, usually when my mom had too much wine at Christmas and would get teary-eyed looking at old photos. Dad would always change the subject, and we all just accepted that whatever happened between them was too painful to discuss. My mom started telling me about how she and Elizabeth were super close as kids. They shared a bedroom, braided each other's hair, passed notes about cute boys, the whole sister thing. But apparently, when they were in their early 20s, Elizabeth started dating this guy Tom. Mom said Tom was trouble, but wouldn't elaborate beyond that cryptic BS. According to my mom, Elizabeth completely changed after meeting Tom. She stopped calling, missed family gatherings, and when she did show up, she'd get into these massive arguments with my grandparents. Things got really bad, and eventually, Elizabeth just disappeared for like 6 months. No calls, no letters. This was the 80s, no cell phones, OBVs. As mom's telling me all this, I'm like, because why TF is she calling me at midnight to rehash ancient family drama? But I could tell from her voice that this was building to something big. Then she tells me that Elizabeth showed up at her apartment one night, sobbing and pregnant. Apparently Tom had taken off and Elizabeth was desperate. My mom took her in, helped her through the pregnancy, and was even in the delivery room when Elizabeth had a baby girl. At this point, I'm still confused AF about why I'm hearing this now at midnight, but I let her continue. Mom said that after the baby was born, Elizabeth struggled hard. Like, couldn't get out of bed to feed the baby, struggled. My mom stepped in, taking care of the baby while working full-time and trying to help Elizabeth get better. 3 months in, Elizabeth seemingly recovered overnight. She told my mom she'd found a great job opportunity in California and was taking the baby to start fresh. My mom was relieved but suspicious. She helped Elizabeth pack, bought her a bus ticket, and gave her all the cash she could spare. The night before Elizabeth was supposed to leave, my mom came home from work to find a note on the kitchen table. Just a note saying, "I can't do this. She deserves better. Please forgive me someday." I remember being literally frozen on my couch at this point, because I could feel where this was going, but my brain was refusing to connect the dots. Mom said she panicked, called the police. But technically, Elizabeth hadn't done anything wrong by leaving her own child. My mom was listed as next of kin, so she became the baby's legal guardian while they searched for Elizabeth. Weeks turned into months. My mom fell in love with the baby girl. When Elizabeth was finally located in California, she signed away her parental rights. My mom officially adopted the little girl and promised to never tell her the truth until she felt she was old enough to understand. I was literally shaking at this point. I remember dropping my phone and having to fumble to pick it back up, because I knew what she was about to say but couldn't believe it. "Sweetie," she whispered, "that baby was you. Elizabeth is your biological mother. I'm actually your aunt." I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The woman I called mom my entire life was actually my aunt. The mysterious sister I'd never met was my biological mother, and she had abandoned me. Mom, I don't even know what to call her now, started crying, saying she'd wanted to tell me for years, but never found the right time. She said Elizabeth had reached out to her last week, asking if they could reconnect after all these years, and she felt I deserved to know the truth before that happened. I hung up without saying goodbye. I still haven't spoken to Elizabeth. First update, yeah, hi again. I'm back, and I wish I could say things are less chaotic, but honestly, it's like the opposite. I don't even know how to start this because it's not like I did anything right after the call. I literally just sat on my couch in the dark, wrapped in my gross old hoodie, doom scrolling through Instagram reels and trying not to think about it, which, spoiler, didn't work. I slept maybe 2 hours max, woke up with that gross taste in your mouth when you know you're about to cry again, and I just kept moving. Went to the kitchen, made coffee, stared at the fridge like it was about to explain something to me. I think I texted my roommate Megan at some point, just like, "Hope you're having fun. Don't worry about the cat. All good here," which lamau, what a lie. There were like 3 days where I was just in autopilot mode. I went out, did my normal stuff, but I kept replaying the phone call in my head, like I'd be at the store and suddenly I'd remember her voice all shaky and weird, and my chest would just go tight. I kept thinking I should call her back, or at least text. But But every time I picked up my phone, I just got mad. Like, actually mad, which is not my default. I'm usually the let's talk it out person. But this felt different. I kept thinking, why now? Why me? Why not just keep it buried forever if you hid it this long? And then I'd spiral into, what else did she lie about? Which, fun, love that for me. Megan came back from her boyfriend's on Sunday night, I think, and the second she walked in, she was like, you okay? And I just said, yeah, I'm fine, because what else do you say? But I guess I wasn't hiding it very well, because she kept side-eyeing me while she unpacked her bag and then finally just dropped onto the couch next to me, still wearing her boots, and said, okay, spill, because you look like you just found out your cat is a lizard or something. She's not subtle, lol. IDK. Why? But I just blurted it all out, not even making it make sense. Just the whole, my mom isn't my mom thing, and how she's actually my aunt, and Elizabeth is my bio mom, and I'm basically the family secret. Megan just sat there, letting me talk, and she didn't do that thing where people immediately jump in with advice, which I honestly appreciated. She just asked, like, normal questions, the kind you'd actually ask if your best friend told you something insane. How do you know it's true? Are you gonna meet Elizabeth? Do you even want to? Did your mom ever mention anything else weird? And then she asked if I wanted her to stay home for a few days, which was sweet, but I said no. I didn't want her to change her plans for me. I just wanted everything to, I don't even know. Go back or fast forward, just not be here. Monday morning, I finally cracked and texted my mom. Do I call her mom? Aunt? IDK, it's so weird now. Just said, we need to talk. She replied instantly like she'd been waiting and asked if I could come over after dinner. I almost said no, but I knew if I didn't get answers, I'd just keep obsessing, so I agreed. The rest of the day was a blur. Just me trying not to think about it, but every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. I kept overthinking what I'd say, what I'd ask, but when I got there, I just sat in my car for like 5 minutes, staring at the front door, wondering if I'd feel different. I didn't. Not really. But the house felt smaller, like everything inside was a prop now. She answered the door and immediately started fussing, asking if I wanted tea, if I'd eaten, all that stuff, and I just said, can we just sit? I could tell she was nervous. Her hands were shaking a little when she poured herself water, and she kept glancing at me like I'd explode. I started with the obvious. Why tell me now? Why not just, never? And she just looked so tired, honestly, like she'd aged 10 years since last week. She said she'd wanted to tell me for years, but every time she tried, she got scared I'd hate her or that I'd leave, and she just kept putting it off. Then Elizabeth reached out and she panicked. Thought if I found out from anyone else it would be worse. Which IDK may be true, but it still sucked. I kept pushing, I wanted details. Like, what was so bad about Tom? Why did Elizabeth leave me? Was she on drugs or something? And my mom, I'm just gonna call her mom for now because it's how I feel. Hesitated, then said Tom was the kind of guy who isolated people. He convinced Elizabeth that their parents hated her, that nobody cared about her, that she was the black sheep and he was the only one who understood. My mom said she tried to warn her, but it just made things worse, and their parents basically gave up trying to get through to her. Then when Elizabeth got pregnant, Tom bailed and Elizabeth spiraled. It wasn't drugs, it was depression, real scary depression. And nobody in the family really knew how to help because nobody talked about mental health back then. Her words, not mine. The thing that got me, though, was when she said Elizabeth had always been jealous of her. She said it quietly, like she didn't want to admit it. But then she told me about little stuff, how Elizabeth would copy her clothes, her handwriting, even the way she did her hair. Apparently their mom, my grandma, I guess, always compared them, told Elizabeth she should be more like her perfect big sister. So when my mom took me in, Elizabeth saw it as her losing again, like she was failing at life, and my mom was winning by default. So yeah, apparently my whole existence is like the final round in their sister competition. That made me so mad I didn't even know how to answer. I asked if she ever thought about telling me when I was a kid, and she just stared at her hands and said, so many times. But every time she chickened out. At that point, I just kind of lost it. Not screaming, but I told her it felt like my whole life was a lie, like I was just a prop in their drama. I said, do you even get how messed up this is? You just decided for me, forever, and now I don't know who I am. She started crying again, but I just sat there. After a few minutes, she wiped her face and told me Elizabeth wanted to meet me, said she'd emailed her and asked if she could reach out, and Elizabeth wrote back a long letter. Mom said she hadn't read it, just forwarded it to me, said she thought it should come from her directly. I checked my email on my phone and there it was, subject line just for you. I didn't open it. I just stared at it and then put my phone face down. I asked Mom what she wanted me to do, and she said she honestly didn't know. She said she'd support whatever I decided, but she hoped I'd at least read the letter, because Elizabeth had been carrying guilt for years, which IDK maybe, but I also feel like that's her problem, not mine. I left pretty soon after. She tried to hug me, but I stepped back, and she just let her arms drop. I could tell I hurt her, but Tabich, I was hurt too. So, I went home and Megan was in the kitchen, and she just handed me a bowl without asking any questions, which is why I love her. We ate in silence, just scrolling through our phones, and for a few minutes it almost felt normal. The next morning, I woke up to like 6 texts from my mom, just checking in, asking if I was okay, telling me she loved me. I spent the whole day at the park just walking for hours, listening to random playlists and trying not to think. At one point, I saw a mom with a little girl and I almost laughed because it felt so fake, like, how do people just go on like nothing happens? Megan kept asking if I'd read the email and I kept saying no. But finally, after 3 days, I caved. I waited until she was out, poured a huge mug of tea, sat on the floor with my laptop, and opened it. The letter was long and clumsy. Elizabeth wrote about how sorry she was, how she wished things were different, how she thought giving me up was the right thing, how she was scared of being her mom, how she watched my mom raise me from a distance sometimes, which, ngel, made my skin crawl a little, like, what does that even mean? Was she stalking me, or just, like, checking in with family? She said she was in therapy now, that she'd spent years rebuilding her life, and that she wanted to meet me if I was willing, but understood if I didn't. Here's the thing that really pissed me off, though. She kept saying, I hope you can forgive me, but never really explained why. Like, she talked about being scared, about Tom being awful, but she never said, I left because of this specific thing. Just a lot of vague stuff about not being ready, feeling lost, being overwhelmed. And then she ended it with, I love you in my own way. What does that even mean? My own way? Like, passively, from a distance? IDK. I told Megan everything, and she just nodded and said, yeah, that's a lot. She asked if I wanted to reply, and I honestly didn't know. Part of me wanted to send back a whole essay about how she doesn't get to just drop in now that I'm an adult and expect me to be grateful. Another part of me just wanted to block her and move on. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I needed to at least see her. Not for her, for me. I just needed answers. I needed to see her face, hear her voice, ask her all the stuff nobody else could answer. So I sent a short reply. Just said, I got your letter. I have questions. I'll meet you, but I'm not promising anything. She replied within an hour, which freaked me out a little because I hadn't expected her to be so ready. She suggested we meet at a coffee place downtown, middle of the day, public, neutral. I agreed, but I told her I wasn't coming alone. Megan offered to come, just to sit nearby, and I said yes. I told my mom I was going to meet Elizabeth, and she freaked out. Not yelling, but clearly upset. She kept saying, are you sure? You don't have to do this. She's not who you think. She started going on about how Elizabeth always makes things about herself, how she twists the story, how she's still unstable, and I just snapped. I told her I'm not a kid. I can handle myself, and I need to do this for me, not anyone else. She got quiet, then said, just promise you'll be careful. I said okay, but I could tell she didn't believe me. So now I don't even know. I'm sitting here with my phone blowing up. Everyone acting like I'm about to walk into a minefield, and maybe I am. But I can't just not know. I can't go my whole life with this question hanging over me. Megan keeps saying she's proud of me for facing it head on. But honestly, I just feel tired. Like, permanently tired. The meeting is tomorrow. I don't know what I'm gonna say. I don't know what Elizabeth is gonna look like, or if I'll even recognize anything of myself in her. I keep thinking about all the family photos that never had her in them, all the holidays where I wondered about the empty seat, and now I'm about to fill it, or at least see who was supposed to sit there. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I'll update when it's over, but for now, just wish me luck, I guess. If you've been through anything even remotely similar, I'd love to hear how you handled it because honestly, I feel like I'm winging it and everyone else has a script I never got. Second update. Okay, so I promised an update, and now I'm sitting here eating dry cereal out of a coffee mug at 2 a.m. because I can't sleep and my brain is running like a broken washing machine. I guess this is what y'all wanted, right? NGL, I'm still processing and I kinda wish I could just shut it off, but nope. My head is just full of random flashes and everything everyone said and what I said and what I should have said, you know? Anyway, here's the story, because wow, it got messier than I thought possible. So, the meeting, I decided to go alone after all. I'm not gonna lie, I almost bailed like 4 different times. I spent the whole morning pacing around the apartment, changing shirts, putting on makeup, taking it off, putting it back on, standing in front of the mirror like, do I look like her? Like, would I even recognize her if she was just someone in line at the store? Megan was a saint. She just let me rant and even let me borrow her headphones so I could put on some music and drown out my thoughts for a bit. She made me eat a banana so I wouldn't get hangry, and then made me promise to text her if I needed an excuse to leave. She even offered to fake a plumbing emergency, which honestly is roommate of the year material. I Ubered to the coffee place because there was no way I was going to deal with parking or deal with possibly running into literally anyone I know. I got there 20 minutes early because I had this weird idea that if I could get the good seat, aka farthest from the door, I'd feel IDK more in control. Turns out I just sat there sipping the world's most disappointing iced coffee and scrolling through Insta over and over, not reading anything. Every time the door opened, I looked up, heart in my throat, and then went back to pretending to check my notifications. There was some guy with a laptop watching soccer highlights at the next table, and a girl in a big scarf who kept glancing at me like she thought I was waiting for a Tinder date. Elizabeth was exactly 2 minutes late. I spotted her as soon as she walked in because she just looked like me, but older, and with this weird nervous energy like she was trying not to take up too much space. She hesitated by the door, scanning the room, then saw me and sort of half smiled. I waved, not really knowing what else to do, and she came over, clutching her bag like someone might steal it. So yeah, first impressions. She's taller than I expected, hair darker than mine, face a little softer. She was wearing jeans and a sweater, nothing dramatic, but her eyes were the same shape as mine, and she had this little frown line I recognized from my own mirror. We just sort of stared at each other for a second. She sat down and we did the whole awkward, "Hi, nice to meet you, how are you?" Except, like, what do you even say to someone who gave you away and then ghosted you for almost 30 years? She said I looked so much like her at my age, which Engel kinda stung in a way I didn't expect. I just nodded and said thanks. And then we sat there in silence for a bit, both pretending to look at the menu even though we'd already ordered. I could tell she was nervous. Her hands were fidgeting with her sleeves, picking at her nails. Honestly, I just wanted her to get to the point, but she kept asking me safe questions. How's work? Do I like living here? Is my roommate nice? I answered, but I kept my voice flat, just giving her the minimum. I wanted her to feel how weird this was for me. Like, you don't just waltz in and act like we're catching up after a semester abroad. After about 10 minutes, I just blurted out, "So why did you leave?" She looked like I'd slapped her, but I didn't care. I was tired of playing nice. She started talking, slow at first, about how she was overwhelmed, how she was so young and alone and didn't know how to be a mother. I interrupted and said, "But you had my mom. You had family." She started tearing up, saying it wasn't that simple, that she felt like a burden, that after Tom left, nobody looked at her the same. She said my grandparents kept comparing her to my mom, kept saying she was the problem, and she just felt like she was drowning. I asked her if she ever thought about coming back. She said she did all the time, but every time she called, she'd hang up before anyone answered. She said she watched from a distance, heard about my birthdays and holidays, but she never wanted to ruin things for me. I told her that's not how it works. You don't get to just peace out and then act like you're protecting me. You didn't even try. She started crying, just sitting there in public, dabbing her eyes with a napkin, and I just sat back and let her. I wasn't gonna comfort her. It didn't feel right. We went back and forth for a while. She kept saying she was sorry, that she wishes she could take it all back, that she's gotten help and is different now. I told her that's great for her, but it doesn't really help me. I asked her if she ever thought about how it felt for me, growing up feeling like I was always a little bit outside of my own life, like something was missing and I didn't know what. She said she thought about it all the time. She said she had nightmares about me hating her, about me never wanting to see her. I said, maybe that's just reality. At one point, she reached across the table like she wanted to touch my hand, but I pulled back. I told her I wasn't ready for that. I asked her what she wanted from me, really. Did she want to be my mom now? Did she want forgiveness? Did she just want to clear her conscience so she could move on? She said she honestly didn't know. She just wanted to know me, even if it was just once. This is where it got even messier, because my phone started buzzing, like a bunch, all at once. I glanced at it and saw texts from my mom, the one who raised me, and then a missed call from my grandma. I ignored them, but then Megan texted me, "Are you good?" And I realized I'd been sitting there for almost an hour. I told Elizabeth I needed a break, and she nodded, said she understood. I stepped outside, called Megan, told her I was fine but needed another 30 minutes. She told me my mom was freaking out, that she'd called the apartment looking for me. I guess I should have told her where I was going, but honestly, I didn't want to deal with her trying to stop me. I went back inside. Elizabeth was still there, staring at her phone. I told her about the messages, and she asked if I wanted to talk about my mom. I told her I didn't even know what to call either of them anymore. I said, "It's like I have two moms and no moms at the same time." She smiled, but it was sad. She said, "I get that. I always felt like a daughter, but not really a daughter too." She started telling me more about Tom, like how he was controlling, how he'd tell her she was worthless, how he'd check her phone and go through her stuff and make her feel like garbage for even talking to her sister. She said by the time I was born, she didn't trust anyone, not even herself. She said when she left me, it wasn't because she didn't love me. It was because she thought I'd be better off with someone stronger. I said, "So you just gave up?" She nodded, and for a second, I thought she was gonna get mad, but she just looked exhausted. Then she told me something I wasn't expecting. She said she resented my mom for stepping in, not because she didn't want me cared for, but because she felt like she lost twice. Once when Tom left, and again when she saw how happy I was with my mom. She said every time she saw pictures, I guess Grandma would send them sometimes, she'd feel relief that I was okay, but also this burning jealousy that she couldn't be the person raising me. I asked her, "So were you mad at me? Did you hate me for being happy?" She said she never hated me, but sometimes she hated herself for not being enough. At this point, I don't know. I couldn't tell if I felt sorry for her or if I was just angry all over again. We were both just sitting there, staring at our drinks, not talking. The coffee shop started to get busier, and I noticed a couple people glancing at us, probably wondering what our deal was. I didn't care. Then, because life loves drama. My phone rang again, and this time it was my grandma. I picked up just to stop the buzzing, and she immediately started asking if I was okay, if I was safe, if I needed a ride home. I told her I was fine, that I was with Elizabeth, and she just sighed and said, "You know how your mother gets." I said, "Which one?" And she went quiet. Then she said, "Just come for dinner tonight if you can. We all need to talk." I told her I'd think about it. Hung up, told Elizabeth about the dinner invite. She looked nervous, said she hadn't seen her parents in years, not since she signed the papers. She asked if I wanted her to come. I said I didn't know, but maybe it was time for everyone to stop hiding. The last half hour was a blur. We talked about stupid stuff. Favorite movies, music, foods we hate. She laughed when I said I still can't eat Brussels sprouts, said it was genetic. I could see little pieces of myself in her, which was honestly the weirdest part of all. At the end, we just kind of sat there, neither of us wanting to leave first. She finally stood up, slung her bag over her shoulder, and said she hoped I'd call her again. I said I'd think about it. She nodded, then just walked out. No hug, no tears, just gone. When I got home, my mom was waiting in the kitchen. I could tell she'd been crying. Her eyes were red and her nose was all puffy. She just looked at me, waiting. I put my bag down and sat across from her at the table. She asked if I was okay, if Elizabeth had said anything weird. I told her everything, not sparing the messy parts. She got defensive, said Elizabeth always played the victim, that she'd always blamed everyone else for her problems. I told her it sounded like everyone in this family had been blaming everyone else for a long time, and maybe that's why I never knew the truth. She started to argue, but I just held up my hand. I said, "I'm not picking sides. I just want the truth." She said the truth was that she tried her best, that she loved me, and that if she could do it all over again, she'd still choose me. I told her I believed her, but that didn't mean I wasn't angry. Megan came home in the middle of all this and just quietly put her headphones on and went to her room because, yeah, who wants to walk into that? Later, she texted me from literally 10 feet away, asking if I needed ice cream or to scream into a pillow. I just sent her back the skull emoji. I went to the dinner at my grandparents' house because at this point, why not just rip the Band-Aid all the way off? Everyone was there. My mom, Elizabeth, grandma, grandpa, even my cousin Riley, who just kept making awkward jokes about family reunions. The tension was wild. Grandma kept trying to act normal, passing dishes and asking about the weather, but nobody was eating. Elizabeth barely spoke. My mom kept glaring at her and Grandpa just sat there staring at his plate. Eventually, Grandma tried to start a real conversation, saying we needed to talk, not just pretend nothing happened. My mom immediately started in, saying Elizabeth had no right to just show up now, that she'd given up her chance, that she was just trying to stir up drama. Elizabeth fired back, saying she'd been pushed out, that nobody ever wanted her there, that she was just doing what everyone expected. I couldn't sit there and listen to them go back and forth, so I finally just snapped. I said, "This isn't about either of you. It's about me. I'm the one who's been lied to for my whole life. I'm the one who has to deal with all this, not you." I told them I was done being the reason they fought. I said I was tired and I wasn't going to pick sides, and if they wanted to be in my life, they needed to figure their stuff out without using me as the excuse. There was a long silence after that, just everyone sitting there, staring at their food. Grandma finally said she was sorry, that they'd all failed me in different ways. Grandpa just nodded, still not looking up. My mom started crying again, and Elizabeth just looked away. I left before dessert, just grabbed my bag and walked out. Nobody tried to stop me. Now I'm back in my apartment, Megan asleep. The cat curled up on my blanket, and I'm sitting here wondering what comes next. I don't feel better exactly, but I do feel clearer. Like, at least I finally said what I needed to say. I don't know if I'll ever really forgive either of them, or if I even want to, but I do know I'm not gonna let them keep using me to fight old battles. I guess that's the update. The family group chat is blowing up, people are picking sides, Grandma keeps sending just love each other memes, and I'm just here trying to find a clean spoon. If you read this far, thanks. And if you have advice, I'll take it. Because honestly, I have no idea what I'm doing. Next steps? No clue. But for once, it feels like it's actually up to me. Last update. I keep trying to write this in my notes app, and every time I get halfway through, I realize I sound like I'm recapping a soap opera. But if you've read my earlier posts, you know I'm not exaggerating. If anything, I'm probably leaving stuff out because it's just too much to process in one go. Anyway, here's what happened after that mess of a dinner where I basically told my whole family to stop using me as a human shield in their sibling war. So, next morning I woke up to 4 missed calls from my grandma, a string of texts from my mom, yeah, I'm still calling her that, IDC, and a random, thinking of you, hope you're okay email from Elizabeth. I ignored all of them. I just sat there in bed scrolling through my feed trying to care about someone's vacation pics or a meme about cats, but my brain was just stuck on replay. My Aunt Tracy, Mom and Elizabeth's other sister, yes, there's a third, she lives in Florida and never visits, telling everyone to have some grace, which is rich coming from her TBH. Megan came into my room with a mug of coffee and just sat on the edge of my bed like she was about to tell me my dog died. Instead, she just nudged me and said, "Your grandma's been calling here too. Are you gonna answer?" I told her I didn't want to talk to anyone, And she shrugged, said I should at least let people know I'm alive. I finally texted my grandma and said, I'm fine, just need space, love you. She immediately sent back 10 heart emojis and a paragraph about how family can heal if we try. I just put my phone face down and stared at the ceiling for like an hour. That day was just weird. I went for a long walk, bought myself a donut, sat in the park watching 2 kids try to catch a squirrel. I realized I was just waiting for someone to show up, like my mom was gonna appear out of nowhere and demand I come home, but nobody did. And by the time I got back to the apartment, Megan was making pasta and playing music, and it almost felt normal again. She asked if I wanted to watch a movie and I said yes. So we watched some dumb comedy and ate pasta out of the pot with forks because we were too lazy to do dishes. It was the first time in days I didn't feel like I was about to snap. But then the next day, everything exploded. I woke up to a voicemail from my grandpa, which is wild because he never calls anyone. His voice was all scratchy. He just said, "Call me when you can. We need to talk." I felt sick listening to it because he sounded so tired, like he'd aged a decade overnight. I waited until afternoon and then called him back, half hoping he wouldn't pick up. He did, and after a long silence, he just said, "I'm sorry you had to find out this way." I asked him what he meant, and he just kept apologizing, saying he should have stepped in, that none of this was fair to me or Elizabeth or my mom. He said Grandma was really struggling, that my mom was barely sleeping, and that Elizabeth had called him crying. I asked if he was mad at me, and he just said no, never, but he was sad. He said families are like knots. It's easy to tie them, but so hard to untangle. I didn't know what to say, so I just listened. After that call, I felt weird, like guilty, but also annoyed, because now I was responsible for everyone's feelings again. So here's where it gets even more dramatic. I thought things would just simmer down if I ignored everyone for a while, but nope. Instead, everyone started fighting in the family group chat, like actually fighting. Grandma telling everyone to stop, my mom accusing Elizabeth of manipulating me, Elizabeth saying she just wanted a chance to explain, Tracy chiming in from Florida with, "Let's all take a breath," Grandpa sending a link to an article about forgiveness. Like, okay? At one point, Riley dropped a meme of a burning bridge and then left the chat completely. I let it all scroll past and muted the notifications. It got worse when my mom showed up at my door that night. She knocked. And when I opened it, she just stood there, clutching her keys so hard her knuckles were white. Megan hovered in the kitchen, trying to look busy. My mom came in and sat on the couch. Didn't even take off her coat. She said she needed to talk, and I said fine, but only if she was honest. She started crying, which honestly, at this point, just made me feel numb. She said she was scared, that she was losing me, that she didn't know how to fix it. I told her it's not about fixing it. It's about actually dealing with it for once. I said I was tired of being the glue, and I refused to keep holding everyone together. She asked if I was going to see Elizabeth again. I said I didn't know. She said if I did, she wanted to be there. I told her that wouldn't happen. She got angry then, not yelling, but her voice sharp. She said Elizabeth always ruins everything and that she's only reaching out now because she wants something. I asked her what that even meant, and she just shook her head, said I didn't understand that Elizabeth was always like this, making everything about her, needing attention, never satisfied. I told her maybe that's true, but it's not my problem to solve. She got up and left. I just sat there for a while, staring at the dent in the carpet from where her suitcase always sat when she'd visit. Megan came in, handed me a glass of water and said, "That was a lot." I nodded, and she just sat with me in silence. Hours later, I got a text from Elizabeth. She said she was sorry for causing so much trouble, that she never meant to blow up my life, that if I didn't want to see her again, she'd respect it. She said she was leaving town in 2 days, but would stay at a hotel in case I changed my mind. I didn't reply at first, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. I called Grandma, asked how she was, and she just sighed, said she was tired but glad I called. She told me she loved me no matter what, and that even if everyone else was fighting, she'd always be here. I asked if I should meet Elizabeth again, and she said only if I wanted to, not for anyone else. Next day, things hit a new level of awkward. I went to get groceries and ran into Riley in the parking lot. He gave me this huge hug, said he was sorry for the memes, that he didn't know what else to do. He said the family was losing it, that Grandma was crying, Grandpa was barely talking, and Tracy kept texting him. Recipes like that was gonna fix anything. He asked if I was okay, and I said, honestly, I didn't know. He said he'd back me up, whatever I decided. We ended up just standing there, leaning on my car, talking about literally anything else. When I got home, there were 3 missed calls from my mom, which I ignored. That night, I decided to see Elizabeth one last time. Not for her or for my mom, but because I needed to know if there was anything else, anything left unsaid. I texted Megan, told her where I was going, set up my phone to share my location, safety first. I Ubered to the hotel, which was this sad little place near the highway, and waited in the lobby until she came down. She looked tired, older than before, like all the family drama had taken something out of her. We sat in the little lounge area, and she asked if I wanted coffee. I just shook my head. I told her I had questions and I wanted real answers, not just, I didn't know what to do or I was scared. She nodded, said she understood. So I asked her, point blank, why come back now? Why not 20 years ago? Why not when I graduated or when grandma got sick or literally any other time? She took a long time to answer. She said she'd tried more than once. But every time she reached out, my mom shut her down. She said mom would say I wasn't ready, or that it would ruin my life, or that I was better off not knowing. She said she believed her for a long time, but then she realized she was just scared. Scared that if I met Elizabeth, I'd leave her behind. I asked if that was true, and she said she didn't know, but she thought it was possible. She said my mom was always the fixer, always the one who held everything together, and losing me would be the final proof she'd failed. I asked her what she wanted from me. She said she didn't want money, or forgiveness, or a relationship if I didn't want it. She just wanted to know me, to see who I'd become, to have a chance to say sorry to my face. She said she knew it was selfish, but after all these years, she couldn't let it go anymore. I told her I didn't know if I could ever forgive her, but I appreciated her honesty. She nodded, said she'd take what she could get. She asked if I wanted to stay in touch, and I said maybe, but it would have to be on my terms. She agreed, didn't push. We sat there for a while, just talking about nothing. My favorite shows, her cat, the best pizza in the city. When I got up to leave, she stood too. And for a second, I thought she might try to hug me, but she just put her hand on my shoulder and said, "Take care of yourself." When I got home, my mom was waiting outside the building. She asked if I'd seen Elizabeth, and I said yes. She asked if I was going to see her again, and I said I didn't know. She started crying, saying she was scared, that she'd lose me. I told her she wouldn't, but things had to change. I wasn't going to pick sides or be the family peacemaker anymore. I told her I loved her, but I needed boundaries, and if she couldn't respect that, I'd have to take a break from her too. She wiped her eyes and said she'd try. I told her that was all I wanted. The next week, things just shifted. Grandma invited me over for dinner, just me and Grandpa. She made my favorite casserole, and we sat around talking about nothing in particular. Grandpa gave me an old photo album and said, "This is your story too." I flipped through pictures of birthdays and old Halloween costumes, and for once, it didn't feel like something was missing. Megan's been a rock through all this. She bought new bath towels because she said, fresh start energy, and keeps reminding me to eat something green at least once a week. I don't have a big lesson to share, or some neat ending where everyone hugs and makes up. My family is still a mess, people are still mad, and I'm still figuring it out. But for the first time, I feel like I actually get to decide what happens next. I'm not anyone's secret or pawn anymore, and I'm not gonna let old drama define me. So that's it. If you made it this far, thanks for caring about a random internet stranger's family drama. If you're going through something similar, I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but you're not alone. Sometimes the only thing you can do is just keep going. And maybe, eventually, things will settle, even if they never totally make sense. Anyway, I'm off to eat leftover pasta and ignore the group chat for at least another 12 hours. Thanks for listening.